Turn your radio up. Whoa. Radio time. Whoa, whoa. You're now listening to Street Apologist. Street Apologist. Street Apologist. Street Apologist. On the radio. Street Apologist. Street Apologist. Street Apologist. Street Apologist. Whoa. On the radio.
Been driving all along, feel like I'm dreaming. Okay.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Vocab Malone, and you are now tuned in to Street Apologist Live, the show where we serve the underserved. And we're going to be looking at some Hebrew Israelite activity online today. I know I've been dealing with Islam a lot lately because of the debate I had with Shadid Lewis. Don't worry. We'll still do some Islam stuff, but we'll also still do some Israelite stuff. So here we are today, and I've been wanting to do this for a while, is to point out high-profile media appearances by various Hebrew Israelites. We did one where Guerrilla Hebrew had a pretty big interview, and we did a couple with Captain Tazariak. Now we're going to do another one because, as the thumbnail says, he's everywhere. He's not literally everywhere, but he has become sort of the de facto spokesman for the podcasts to have Captain Tazariak on and discuss what a Hebrew Israelite is. He's one of the main guys they seem to turn to now. So I want to analyze some of these appearances that he had, specifically one on Julian Dory. So let's take a look here. Let me share my screen, and I want to show you some stuff on YouTube, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to go into YouTube, and we are going to look at just a minute, that's Logos, that's for later, don't worry, we'll get to that. We're going to look here on YouTube, do a search for Captain Tazariak, all right? And then what we're going to do is, we're going to do it filtered by view count, okay? I'm going to do it filtered by view count. And so, this is an interesting little exercise. So, the number one viewed video that he's been part of is No Jumper a year ago. It's a clip. Notice it's a hot button issue. 574,000 views there. Then you go down. This is an older one. And, hey, thank you, my man. Yandel with the super chat. Or should I say Torres. Heating and air conditioning. Torres, my man Alan. You are a big supporter of a lot of Christian content creators, and I just want to say that we appreciate it, but I also want to say I probably need it more than some of the other people you support because I'm a smaller channel doing underground work. No joke, I'm not even joking. But shout out to Yandel. Here we are looking at the second one. This is actually, I think, the first video I ever watched of Captain Tazariak, if memory serves. And then this is I don't know if this is this exact clip of it, but this is the first video as far as the content. Face off with Polite, the whole cross the effing line thing. 7 years ago this was posted. It's kind of funny. His fight. He almost fights Polite over white Israelite. They're talking about Captain Kataza, who's a light-skinned Puerto Rican. Then some of you guys didn't know this. He was on Jesse Lee Peterson, the whole Fallen State thing. 475,000 views. This was 4 years ago. Then you get more recent ones. God Logic, great video, great thumbnail, just pretty epic all around. Shout out to Avery. Debating 5 months ago there. And then you got a Polite debate here. See that? 11 years ago. When Polite was doing his thing. This is when the conscious community was more in full swing. You have more stuff like this going down. And then you go to newer stuff, No Jumper again. Tariq Nasheed and Captain Tazariak. That's some big stuff right there. Then you got another debate here. This is on Gentiles. The question is, can heathens who don't believe in Jesus be saved, like Tazariak? The answer is no. And you see that one. Then you got God logic again. Jesus being God. Then you have the one we're going to be looking at today. This is from January. I've wanted to do this a while. This hasn't happened yet. And look at it. Cult leader on Jesus Christ Bible's hidden meaning in 12 tribes of Israel. And the thumbnail says, Bible says we must enslave you. It's got 61,000 views. It's from 2 months ago. So it's already sort of in the top tier, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then the 10th one, Cross the Line Radio, that's his own thing. Against this guy, I debated this guy. Nate, I don't know if you're able to, brother. Nate, maybe you're able to drop the link when I debated Jew. Are you able to put that on the channel up there, Nate? Nate the Great, who stays up late. My man, best moderator in the business. Then I'm not going to go through all of these, but this is on Tazariak's actual channel, Captain Tazarak TV. This is when he was cool with Guerrilla Hebrew until he decided to post negative things about him every day, as if life depended on it. I exaggerate a little bit. Man, my man is definitely taking advantage of this, trying to step in that role, secure that role, it seems like. And you got Tommy, and then he actually was recently at the ISUPK Passover there, Tommy was. And you go on, okay, you get the idea. I'm not going to read through all these. This is an interesting one right there. And then there's our debate. When we debated the virgin birth, hosted by Brother Garfield, that was actually a really good debate. I encourage everyone to listen to it. That's on his channel. Listen to it on my channel instead. All right. Okay. Now, so that gives you a good idea of some of the things that he's been up to. Mike B says the first major show Tazariak was on the Vice documentary Hate Thy Neighbor. Now, you may be right, but Tazariak only made a cameo in that. He briefly is in there when they're like lining up, getting into SUVs or something like that after they're leaving or going to the shooting range or the gun shop or something like that. But I don't really remember him talking or anything. It seemed like he just made a kind of quick little cameo. But he was in there, and that was an interesting documentary. Now, with that as the background, this is a Christian urban apologetics program. We specialized in sort of the religions that plague our cities and the cults, the new religious movements, mainly Hebrew Israelism, but as I told you, I've been interacting with Shadid recently, and so that's different. Shadid Lewis is a Muslim Dawaist, apologist for Islam. And so let's take a look at this. I've got some time codes lined up here from the Julian Dory interview, and we're going to interact with some of this content. And I think you guys will find this very, very interesting. And Messianic Talmud says, get him, vocab. Oh, I'm glad you're here. Talmud, why do you spell the name that way? Interesting. Oh, Namaric. Thanks for visiting the church in Newark. I was not there the Sabbath, but my uncle gave me this scoop. Oh, I would like to meet you. Listen, I know you guys recently had your Passover. This is a member of CASHAPP, by the way. I know you guys recently had your Passover. I was actually going to try to come out there for part of it. It didn't work out. I need to follow up with the gentleman who invited me from CASHAPP, but it hasn't happened yet. And so I want to say that I do have another program that I'm planning on doing on CASHAPP-related issues. Specifically, I'm going to review a William Crowdy book. And so I plan on staying in contact with you guys. Obviously, not everything is going to be about y'all, but I want to keep you in the mix, and hopefully the same is true for you. Okay. I Love French Toast says, vocab, whenever you do an open Q&A, I want to join up to ask about some Hebrew Light and EO stuff. Yeah, I am going to do a smoke room soon. I hope that I get one in before this week. Okay, so let's watch this video here. I got it lined up, like I said. And I'm just going to hit a button, and it's going to start playing. We're going to be we're going to go about 7 minutes.
And they'll say, oh, Jesus know my heart and all that stuff. So we all have, like Romans 10:1 says, we have a zeal for God, but not according to knowledge. So now as I'm watching this video, now it's giving me the knowledge, and the identity part really was the kicker for me. Because
what's he talking about? He's talking about even when he was in the world, he says, in this clip, if you watch it, 7.5 minutes in the Julian Dory podcast, that he still kind of believed in God stuff, right? And then he says that he watched a video, and that's what turned him in to ISUPK. And notice what he said, though. The identity piece was the key piece. What's the difference when you hear a Christian testimony? If the person is really hearing and responding to the gospel, the good news about Jesus Christ, it's some variation upon this theme. I realized I was a great sinner. I realized I could not pay a holy, righteous God for the wrong I've done. Now, they may say it smaller ways, bigger ways, but if a person's really responding to the gospel of Jesus Christ and becoming his disciple, that's the kind of thing you hear him say. It's the sinner's need for a Savior that is supernaturally endowed by the Holy Spirit as the realization hits you and you are born again. For guys like Tazaryak, who are heathens, who are not born again, he's not a Christian, but it's not just the religion of Christian. He's not a believer in the God of the Bible. He's not a believer in the Christ of the Bible. He's essentially a heathen who picks up a Bible. He's not regenerate. Just look at his behavior. Just look at his timeline. Just watch this interview. So, I think that's important to remember. And notice what he said, how the identity piece was key. Where I went out on the street in real life, not behind a keyboard, not in a clubhouse room, with a IUIC camp, and had the microphone and stood face to face with them for an hour. Did you not see that? IUIC won't debate me. What are you talking about, man? Posun says, did you watch Anthony's debate today? I saw it was live and I wasn't able to, but I wish I could. And I hope that I can.
If you ask 10 black people who they are, you're going to get 10 different answers. There's no uniformity. Even if you ask 10 white people what they are, the only thing that'll be uniform is they'll know their ethnicity. They'll know if they're Irish, if they're German, if they're Sicilian, if they're Italian, if they're Polish. You ask black people what they are, it's mainly what they believe in that identifies them. Whether it's Baptist, Muslim, Methodist, Christian, atheist. They're not going to give you, well, because they try to say we're Africans. They ain't going to say, well, I'm Chikunku from the Kakungu tribe or something like that. They're not going to say.
Sorry to be laughing, but
No, we don't like Africans, no.
wait, how does this how does this work?
But don't call this religion racist. Racist behind the religion. That's what they'll try to tell you. Here you have a man of African descent who says he does not like Africans. Do you need any more evidence that the religion of Hebrew Israelism is a religion based upon self-hate? Jim Crow did a number on these folks, and where they themselves agree with the white supremacist that being from Africa is a bad thing. Under his rendering, he's not an African in any way. He just passed through Africa. He was just passing through, and his ancestors got sold in the process when they were just passing through. It was a place of refuge and forgot who they were. So he mocks African language and culture and says, yeah, I don't like Africans. That's why I'm telling you he's not regenerate. A tip to you Christian apologists out there, regardless of your background. When you talk to Hebrew Israelites, especially of the One West variety, don't go up there whining about how they don't like white people. Especially if you're white, it seems really self-serving, doesn't it? If you want to bring that kind of thing up, talk about how they believe they're going to enslave black people. If they're a One Wester and they have a 12 tribes chart, they believe that Africans are of Ham, and they believe they're going to enslave Hamites because they believe they're Gentiles. This man believes he's going to have African slaves. You understand? Nate, could you please share with Rob the video where I was out on the street with IUIC? Yeah, Latasha, it's true that they would say they don't like so-called Edomites, your comment on the screen, But remember, they also say if they're a part of one West group, unless it's GOCC or some of the changes IUIC has made, also Africans. You understand? All right. Yes, it is horrible. Continuing on, as he's laughing about not liking Africans.
What happened there?
So we're not African people. You can't be an Israelite and an African at the same time.
All right, maybe
You're actually right about that, my friend.
we should define that now so people can understand. Because
okay.
my thought, just like when I first heard it and
Right.
hadn't seen anything about it, my thought was, okay, I assume this has of course it's some sort of biblical interpretation, but it has something to do with the fact that you guys think that you originally emanated from there, which means like every other type of person that's ever existed too.
Right.
If you emanate from somewhere, you spread out to other places over
Right.
human history. But it sounds like that's not the case.
No, we don't. So biblically speaking, Africans. So Noah, when you follow the Bible, Noah had 3 sons: Ham, Shem, and Japheth.
Right.
Hamites is where Africans come from.
Okay.
Now, what's going on there? The descendants of Ham, we do see scripture saying that they settled on what would now be known as the African continent. But you got to understand, that doesn't mean that all Africans therefore are Hamites, because other people can go to those places, and Africans can also go to other places. But do you hear what he's getting at here? Now, he's going to read something, and I want to read something first so you have a little bit of knowledge for it. Let me flip the screen here. He's going to read from the Zondervan Compact Bible Dictionary. I have the Pictorial Bible Dictionary. It's very similar to the smaller one that they use, except it's a little more expansive and has some illustration. So I'm looking at the H reference here, and here's what Ham says. This is on page 330, okay? Ham, perhaps hot, as far as the etymology or meaning of the word. The youngest son of Noah, born probably about 96 years before the flood, one of the 8 persons to live through the flood. So far, so good. Now, this next line, this Bible dictionary should be discontinued. This is not good Bible work, and ultimately it comes out of a racist perspective. Listen to this. Next line of the entry on Ham that he's going to cite here. He, meaning Ham, became the progenitor, that means like the original genetic founder in essence. He became the progenitor of the dark races. You know, this was written, I think, in the 60s. Now, this one was printed and published in the 60s, obviously, but that's when it was written. The progenitor of the dark races. Well, who does the white author of this entry think the dark races are? Well, listen to what he says. Not the Negroes. That's what it says. So what this is claiming, and notice there's no text cited here, that Ham is the progenitor of dark races, but not Negroes. Interesting. So all the dark races except the one dark race. Now, who then, according to this, who would be the progenitor of Negroes under this language use? Well, it sure ain't Japheth, and it's sure not Seth. Did I just say Seth? Sorry, brain lapse. It's sure not Shem. None. Now, what's the point about saying that? This doesn't have one of Noah's sons being the progenitor of what this book calls Negroes. So where would that group of people come from according to this? It doesn't actually say. Nefertiti, before her passing, God rest her soul, did some work extensively on this issue and showed most certainly what's being implied here is some sort of non-human animalistic origin. Because if it's not one of Noah's 3 sons, where else from? And what Nefertiti did was show a bunch of examples where old theological writings actually said this. crazy. Crazy, crazy, crazy. Might be, I'll try to get to that in a second. Hopefully it relates to the issue there. Now, see, we're saying Japheth is the progenitor of the Indo-European tribes, that they wouldn't understand that. That's what you're saying, DWC. Kind of. Isn't it more accurate to say descendants of Jacob settled in these lands? Do you see what I'm saying? Now, there's a rough overlap with that. I understand that. But that's more precise than saying, well, we know he's a progenitor of these, quote, races. Now, I want to read the rest of this to you and just understand what it's saying and what it's not saying. Because they'll read this, but here's the thing. They're saying this old word, Negroes, they're saying that's a way to distinguish themselves from Africans. But notice, it's only going to distinguish Negroes from some Africans when I read this definition. You'll notice it's mainly northern Africans. Whoever wrote this, I guarantee, would... There's a reason they're separating out African peoples from each other. This is old classic white supremacy. Because you'll see who it is in a second here. Watch this. He, meaning Ham, became the progenitor of the dark races, not the Negroes, but the Egyptians, Ethiopians, Libyans, and Canaanites. So those are the dark races, but not Negro races, according to this. His indecency, when his father lay drunken, brought a curse upon Canaan. Now, in the third section of this definition, it says the descendants of the original Ham, or as the Jews say, Ham. In these passages, Ham is used as another name for Egypt as representing Ham's principal descendants. Now, I don't know about the idea of principal descendants, but the idea is you start there and kind of go down. But look, it doesn't then say, well, under Shem... You see, because they're acting like this is admitting it, that this is factual or something. But they don't know who wrote this. Now, I know who the editor is. He's passed. But he was a guy who also wrote a little children's book with a Jesus on the cover, who was not a black Jesus, like they would say. So now I'm going to page 782, Shem. Here's what it says. Second son of Noah, progenitor of the Semitic race. So it doesn't say what he's trying to say. It's not going to say the Semitic race, and was born 98 years before the flood, lived 600 years, outliving his descendants for 9 generations, excepting Eber and Abraham. In the racial prophecy, which Noah made after the event of his drunkenness, notice, racial prophecy? That's the way we're referring to it? This is not a modern scholarly book. It shouldn't even be in print anymore. It's got old white supremacist ideas snuck in here. He mentions Jehovah. So notice the name they give, Jehovah. It's not even a correct rendering for the name of God. Jehovah. It's a European confused version of Yahweh, if you studied the origin of Jehovah. It's an accident. It wasn't on purpose. They were trying to combine 2 Hebrew things. They were trying to, but it didn't work out. He mentions Jehovah, God of Shem. The 3 great monotheistic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, all had Semitic origins, and Noah added concerning Japheth that his descendants would dwell in the tents of Shem, indicating that the Aryan peoples, to a large extent, have derived their civilization from the Semites. Do you understand what this is saying? Listen to this, and this is why it's important to go to their own source that they use to see what else it's saying. Under the entry for Shem, it's saying where it says that Japheth will dwell in the tents of Shem, it's describing Japhetic peoples as Aryan peoples. Aryan, bro. These are not good scientific designations. To a large extent have derived their civilization from the Semites. Now, the weird thing is, I know enough about One West Hebrew Israelism that everything I'm reading in here, I could interpret from their messed up frame of reference and say, we'll see vocab, this actually does prove our point. I could actually do that. Meaning I could give an argument from their perspective and show you how the way they would flip and spin all of this. So I'm not, to the Hebrew Israelites watching, I understand what you're going to try to say. It's just wrong. So I'm not going to get into all that. I'll let you make that video if you want. The Aryan peoples, to a large extent, have derived their civilization from the Semites. In the table of the nations in Genesis 10, Shem is given 5 sons, of whom Pakasad was clearly an individual, and the others are peoples or progenitors of peoples. Example given. Lud refers to the Lydians in Asia Minor. Elam points to the Elamites who lived east of the Tigris River. Aram means the Arameans or Syrians who lived in Syria and Mesopotamia, and Ashur is Assyria. Scoffers pointed out a century ago that Ashur is mentioned also in the Hamite list, but archaeologists have found Hamitic artifacts under Semitic ruins of Assyrian cities. Shem, Ham, and Japheth probably differed only as brothers do, but their descendants are quite distinct. Notice this. Now, this is all speculation. This is old classic speculation where you get these weird trying to understand things based upon speculation. Shem, Ham, and Japheth probably differed only as brothers do. He's saying they basically look the same. So you're not going to have a black one, a white one, and an Asian one or something like that. It's not saying that, but it's saying their descendants are quite distinct. Now the author of that one is ABF. Now you could go and you can find out who actually wrote that, and then see who wrote it. It's a very interesting exercise. Now with the Ham one, we don't get the initials because the entry is not long enough. They tend to do it on the longer ones. Unfortunately, we don't get the entry's initials, so we have to turn to the editor. Now, the editor of this one is Merrill Tenney, but the original, the smaller one, the compact one, is a different guy. Forgetting his name off the top of my head, but you can look it up. So, putting all this together is important just to see. Now, I don't want to spend the whole time on that, but I just want to show you what's going on. Shout out to JP Uncut. How you doing, JP? How you doing? How you doing? How you doing? Shout out to a lot of great people up in here, and I'm going to get to your comments, but first I want to play more of this. I'll grab the Windsor book, okay? You guys ready? Here we go, here we go. What book, which one am I trying to put here? Let me go with next one right here, okay.
Okay.
So, and you can even in the Bible dictionary, the Zondervan Bible Dictionary will tell you Ham was the progenitor of the dark races, but that's a white Bible, so even y'all know that.
It says that?
Yeah. If you Google Zondervan Bible Dictionary, as a matter of fact, I think I have the Bible Dictionary on my phone. If I can get it, if I can pull it for you, I'll show you. And so in there, it'll tell you that we are not Africans. So the progenitor of Ham became the progenitor of like the Egyptians, the Libyans, the Canaanites, Ethiopians, etc. So when you look at the bloodline or the ethnic line, Abraham comes from Shem.
Yeah.
So he's totally separate from Ham.
Got it.
Just like Arabs. Arabs wouldn't be Ham either. Y'all, white people, y'all not Hamites either. We all come from a Shemitic bloodline. You know, they'll probably say this is controversial. I don't know how they'll look at it, but when we always talk about the origin of white people, even our concept is different than what most people think.
How's your concept different?
Because Jacob and Esau, Jacob became the progenitor of what you call blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians today. Esau became the progenitor of white people. And so we share the same Isaac and Rebekah, mother and father.
And me do.
Yeah, in origin.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. But God said, when God spoke to Rebekah in Genesis 25 and 23, he said, 2 manner of people are in your wombs, because we was fighting in the womb.
Oh, we were duking it out in there.
Yeah, we was, because as we fighting and struggling in the womb, Rebekah goes to the Lord and say, why is this happening?
Now, there's so many things in there that I hope you caught. Are you paying attention? I hope you are. This is from Captain Tazariak's interview with Julian Dory, a huge podcaster. Notice what he says there. It disagrees with a number of things I've read in the Zondervans already. Now, I got the smaller version. They're essentially the same, compact. This is the pictorial. It's a little more expansive and expensive. He's saying, I don't know if you caught it, that white people are Semitic. Did you understand that? He's saying white people are descendants of Shem. But notice, all this, especially when I just read the entry for Shem, it directly assumes that Japhetic peoples, because where they take Japheth will dwell in the tents of Shem, the author here in this book, I just read it. If you didn't see it, rewind it. It said this means the Aryan peoples. So they're obviously, which is just crazy even to use that term, they're saying white folks are Japhetic. So if Tazariak's going to be consistent, he doesn't get to say, well, this part's right. By the way, the Zondervan never says Negroes, and that's the term in here that they like to use, are descendants of Shem. It never says that. It just says they're not descendants supposedly of Ham. That's all it says. They take it as, oh, that means we're descendants of Shem. It doesn't say that in here. This is just a Bible dictionary, and it's wrong, and it doesn't even agree with them, because notice what he just said. If white people are descendants of Esau, that means they're Semitic, because Jacob and Esau are twins. I hope you understood what he just said. He literally just contradicted his own source. Are you guys following? Now, let's read this where it says Esau. This is going to the sources they use. These are not modern day academic Bible dictionaries. Okay, I hope you understand that, first of all. These are outdated. They're only popular because the Israelites still buy them. And even when they were made, they were pop level. They weren't even top of the line even back then. I mean, it's literally a pocket dictionary, people, but they use it because they like that line. But let's see what Esau says. Esau, firstborn of twin brothers, Esau and Jacob, sons of Isaac and Rebekah, sold his birthright for a mess of pottage to his brother, married 2 Hittite women, sought to kill Jacob for tricking him out of Isaac's blessing, later reconciled to Jacob. Scripture sometimes uses Esau as the name of the land of Edom in which his descendants live. So, it doesn't say father of the white race. You know, that's what they're trying to get at. So if they're going to use this, then use it. Do you see how cheap and dishonest One West Hebrewism is? Tazariak, gosh, man, he's like a showman. You know? Might as well be playing 3-card Monty. Edom, entry. The nation and its people who were descendants of Esau. He founded the country, so his name is equated with Edom. The country is also called Seir, or Mount Seir, which is the name of the territory in which the Edomites live. And you can go through and look, and it doesn't have anything to do with white people. It's just not in here. Just go through and read it. It's a longer entry, so I'm not going to read it all. But it's not in there. Do you understand? Shout out to J3 Apologetics, my man, for the super chat. Thank you. You guys are being supportive tonight. I appreciate that. Shout out to Ham Sunshine very, very much. And no, we're not going to talk about the difference of skulls or anything like that. Shout out to both of you. Appreciate. Okay, so I hope that we're following along here and understanding this. And I hope you all subscribe to Minister Chris. He does a great urban apologetics channel as well. And if I didn't give a shout out already to JP, give it a shout out to JP. Now, let's see here. Someone asked a question, and I'm going to give you a... where to go? You had something about Rudolph Windsor. Okay, I'm going to go here, Mike B. I hope you're not just randomly. So I'm in page 84 in my From Babylon to Timbuktu. And on the second paragraph, here's what it says, okay? In the year 65 BC, the Roman armies under General Pompey captured Jerusalem. In 70 AD, General Vespasian and his son Titus put an end to the Jewish state with great slaughter. During the period of the military governors of Palestine, many outages and atrocities were committed against the residue of the people. During the period from Pompey to Julius, it has been estimated that over 1 million Jews fled into Africa, fleeing from Roman persecution and slavery. The slave markets were full of black Jewish slaves. Okay. I read it, but I'm not sure what you're trying to get at with it. So in my copy, I've already got that highlighted, that section right there. If this is the section you had me read right here, I've already got it highlighted because it was important, because this is one of the main places where they get their claim from, where they try to say 1 million black Jews, as they would put it, went into Africa. And so in my little notes here, I put by whom, meaning by whom was it estimated that 1 million black Jews went into Africa? Because you can look high and low, you'll never find any source that agrees with Rudolph Windsor that 1 million black Jews went into Africa. Let's just forget about the adjective for a second there. You won't find any sources that says 1 million Jews went into Africa. You'll find some ancient historical sources talk about 1 million people maybe in Jerusalem, and there's differences between, I think it's Josephus and Tacitus on that number. There's differences, but they're not saying 1 million people fled into Africa. That's not in here. So this is why this book is garbage, straight up. But you got to have it because it's like their alternative history. When it says the slave markets were full of black Jewish slaves, Windsor is saying that since the black Jews, as he would put it, went into Africa, he's saying now that the slave markets are full of them. So I don't see how it refutes what a one Wester would say, unless I'm not understanding you might be. It doesn't refute them because that's how they would interpret it. But what it does is shows how bad this book is. Shout out to Minister Chris. And it says, it's crazy how you can just change the Bible with no remorse. Agreed. Yep. That's exactly right. Okay, now, let's continue on. Looking at this awful interview, Julian Dory and Captain Tazariak. Let's see what he says next here.
And God told her, 2 nations are in thy womb, and 2 manner of people shall be separated from thy bowels. That's why, although Jacob and Esau was brothers, Esau's way of living and lifestyle was in total contrast to Jacob's way of living and lifestyle, which is what we are today. Black and white, we damn near can't separate from each other or join each other without conflict.
Interesting. Never
Like
thought
y'all
of it
won't
that way.
like y'all won't let us free.
Why not?
You gotta ask your people.
You're not free right now?
No, we ain't free. We in a halfway house.
What do you mean you're in a half?
Hey, look where Tazariak's sitting. Look at what he's wearing. He's not free. Tazariak sells his beard oils online. He makes posts. He travels around the country. He gets online. The only way he's not free is his own commanding General Yohana telling him what to do and what he can't do. Do you know one time I had a debate lined up with Tazariak? Now, granted, it was going to be on a panel, and it was a panel that was a review of my book, my first book on Hebrew Israelites. Tazariak was scheduled to be on the panel. At the last second, he pulled out, and I said, what happened? They said, well, his supervisor, his superiors, said he couldn't come on. He wasn't allowed to. Now, he's going to say, I'm a man of discipline, I'm a man of order. That's what we do at the ISUPK. But you're not free. You're under the commanding General Yohana. That's only, you know? Ronell says, with the super chat, Vocab, love your channel. Any chance you'll make an episode dedicated to Hebrew Israelites and Mizrahi Jews? Well, what do you mean by both of those groups together? I would like to do a program specifically on the Mizrahi. I think that's a good idea. That would be very interesting. So this is what this guy says. But it's just a joke. What it does is, in real life, Libya sells, they got slave markets over there. CNN crashed them. They went over there and got some secret video. People were being sold for $400. Real life, this stuff happens. To say you're a slave to Tazariak makes a mockery of actual slavery.
White House.
So you know,
All
like
right, it's starting. Let's go.
Yeah. So you know, like in the halfway house, you're not like in prison, so you're not like on 24-hour lockdown. So in the halfway house, you get to move around a little bit and stuff like that. Got freedom, but don't go too far.
Right.
That's black people in America. We're in the halfway house because if you ever enslave a people, and then you say,
Yo, he can travel as long as he's got a passport anywhere in the world. And you say, passport, but hey, passport, man. Everyone got to have one to go anywhere. It ain't an Israelite thing. You know, David Wood can't go in the UK because he has a felony charge. Tazariak can go in the UK. David Wood can't. Halfway house.
that they're free, but then they still have to live where they were enslaved. How could they be free? I always use like the Jewish people, for example. You wouldn't leave. They didn't leave them in Germany. They had to go find a land, which
Yeah, no Jewish people stayed in Germany. You understand what I'm saying? Yes, I understand he's talking about the creation of Israel. But it's such a dumb illustration because guess what? Jewish people still live in Germany. Now, that's 12 and a half minutes in. We're going to go much farther now. We're going to go 51 minutes all the way in. We're going to go 51 minutes into this Julian Dory interview, and I hope that he's gracious and allows this video to be up.
Mm-hmm.
The math ain't mathing on this for me.
Because probably what you're looking at when you say is blacker than Ziggy Marley, you're probably going to look at how they conduct themselves. Like Bob Marley did not take on his father's way of life. He took on his mother's way of life.
I'm not looking at that at all. I'm literally
just looking at it
I'm
from-
just talking percentage of ethnicity right now. I'm not talking about how they act or what it is.
Yeah, that's why we're not supposed to mix. You know, the Bible says we're not supposed to
Where
interracially
does it say
mix.
that?
In Deuteronomy, the 7th chapter, it
Pull
says...
this up.
pull
Deuteronomy
that
7th
up.
chapter.
Yeah.
Don't want to mix. All right, so there's a question, though.
Yeah.
Are you a Bible literalist? Meaning every word in there.
No, the
Down-
Bible is metaphorically, literal, and spiritual. Spiritual
How do you
first.
make the designation?
Listen to him try to do biblical interpretation. It's metaphorical, literature, and literal and spiritual. It's just such amateur hour. Now, you could say to an extent we know what he's trying to say, but if you're really going to talk about biblical interpretation, he's going to talk about context later, so that's not what I'm going to correct him on. You should talk about the genres of literature in the book, right? You talk about the genres of literature. That should be where you start at. The genre tells you. So you're reading a historical book. If you're reading a historical section in a historical book, you interpret a certain way as you should properly understand. If you're reading a poetic wisdom section, you know what I mean? That's a different sort of set of rules for the genre of literature. Same thing with apocalyptic literature as well. Now, notice he just said, oh, look, Deuteronomy 7 says we can't mix. Now, if you read Deuteronomy 7, it's specifically talking about when they're supposed to be going into the land, Canaan. That's who it's saying you're supposed to clear them away. That's what it says. You're supposed to clear them away. That's what it's talking about. And so that's what he's talking about into the intermarrying. This is the immediate instruction of what they're to do when they go into the land. But it's obviously not based upon ethnicity, and it's obviously not permanent. How do you know? Well, you got Ruth, you got Uriah, you got a whole bunch of other people. It just doesn't work. Shout out to D New. We got the two best mods in the business. Listen to what he says here.
By context of what you're reading.
What does that mean?
Meaning if you're reading something and it's talking about death and life, like when God told Adam, if you break this commandment, you're going to die. Adam didn't literally die because that's not the point God was making. But Adam's life was going to be extremely hard. And then you see that. So when they disobeyed, they got kicked out the garden. First thing that you see happen is his two sons, one of his sons kills the other son.
Now, it's weird. There's a sense in which he just said spiritual. It seems like he should understand there's a sense in which Adam and Eve spiritually died. They're immediately disconnected from the Creator and from themselves. And you can see that by Adam hiding from Yahweh and then not answering Yahweh and the way that shows full honesty. And then you've also got the situation where he then blames his wife. So you have that, plus the fact that they now will die literally. So spiritual immediately, physical later on. Saint Ephraim says prohibition of marrying foreign wives repeated throughout the Old Testament. All right, a few things about that. What do you do with the fact that Moses himself, the person who would be writing Deuteronomy, had a foreign wife? Numbers 12. Moses himself had a foreign wife. So Moses seemed to understand his own law different than you do. Thank you. Okay, now I'm going to go up to 1 hour and 19 minutes in. This is the Captain Tazariak Julian Dory interview. And there's a lot of interesting stuff in here. We can't watch all of it, but we can definitely watch some of it. So I appreciate you joining here on Street Apologist Live today. Sometimes we do this. We do these live interviews and reactions and reviews. That's exactly what we're doing right now. This already has 64,000 views. He did it back in January, so it's a big podcast, big interview, and the Israelites are really getting on a lot of podcasts right now, and Tazariak's sort of the leader of the pack as far as that. Now, let's watch an hour and 19 minutes.
Come on.
And that's my point when I say racism drives America. It drives a wedge to where if we really the villains, if they wanted to make us a villain, meaning the Israelites, if you wanted to make the Israelites a villain, then there shouldn't be no other racism that exists. There shouldn't be no taking advantage of race, especially from a government level.
But you want to enslave white people.
No, I don't want to enslave white people. God wants to enslave white people. There's a difference. Don't get mad at me. You got to get mad at God.
Yeah, but that...
And this is why Hebrew Israelism is such a wicked religion. You know? Here you have Julian Dory, an unbeliever. And you have someone who says they're a Bible believer, Tazariak. And he says, you want to enslave white people. Now, he should just own it and say, yeah, I want to enslave white people. Instead, what he does is, no, I don't want to. God wants to. It's a cop-out, first of all. And second of all, this is blasphemous. He's saying that God wants to do something God never said he's going to do. You are putting words in the one true God's mouth. You'll be held accountable for this, Tazariak. You understand? And you're doing this publicly, a witness before the world. This is why it's such a wicked religion. People open the Bible and then lie on God. We'll click on the live chat. Let me get to this, get the super chat. Ronell, I appreciate you. By the way, I'm actually from Israel, not trolling. Just want an in-depth analysis of Hebrews, like different camps of you, Israel, Jews. Okay. I didn't think you were trolling or anything. It's just, here, let me explain a little bit. Since you gave a super chat, you deserve that. Hebrew Israelites do not have well-formed opinion of Mizrahi Jews. In general, they don't even know much about the category of the Mizrahim. I've interacted with them on this. I can see the blank looks in their eyes when I bring it up. They know Ashkenazi, and some of them know a little bit about Sephardic. It's rare to find one who knows much about the Mizrahim, and they do not have well thought out answers or responses to it. To me, it's clearly a defeater for their whole position and whatnot, especially when you talk about the Baghdadi or Iraqi Jews. I think that they, from everything I've read and being able to see, most closely match the older population of 2,000 years ago. It's a continuous community, relatively speaking, and there's evidence relating to that shows they would be most close. So I think that's important. All right, continuing on here. Well, let me see here. St. Ephraim, I knew you would say that. Now, if that's the case, Moses should have made it right. Moses should have made it right and divorced his non-Israelite wife under your rendering, because that's what they did later on, right? Not only that, St. Ephraim, if what you're saying is true, then in Numbers 12, did not Yahweh know what the law was going to be that he was going to reveal, according to your understanding? So why would God get mad at Miriam and Aaron when they're essentially just preempting, guessing in advance what God was going to say in regards to the Cushite woman? Instead, he corrects them, gives Miriam leprosy. It just doesn't work, man. It just doesn't work. And Oliver Wilson is exactly right. King Cadmus, listen, would you like to come on sometime? I want you to please contact me, vocabmalone@gmail.com. You don't have to show your face. I'm not going to get you to try to talk bad about your former camp. I just would like to know some history of you and your current views. I think that could be very, very important. Now, St. Ephraim, that doesn't work either, because he was using Deuteronomy to prohibit all so-called non-Israelite intermarriage. So you guys have a different opinion if that's the case, if that's what you're saying.
All right, so God, in your context right here.
Well, in the Bible, let's say if you take black or white, out of it, there is a people or nations that are gonna be enslaved for touching God's people. Let's say if I'm not an Israelite.
Yeah.
When you read Isaiah the 60th chapter, it says, "The nation that would not serve thee shall perish." So there is nations that are gonna serve God's people. Now for us, we the Israelites, of course, so we saying that's all of y'all because y'all touch black people. So God is enslaving
But
you.
I didn't touch.
Notice, he makes it just black. Native Americans on a 12-tribe chart. Why'd you forget about them there? Hispanic folks on a 12-tribe chart. Why'd you forget them there? You see what I'm saying? Now, I'm going to go to Isaiah 60 real quick here in a second, but look at the nonsense here, what he's saying.
Black people like that.
Right.
Some fucking guy in 1845 did, who
Somebody
has no relation to me.
You know, just like we suffer for the sins of our father, y'all got to suffer for the sins of your father.
Okay, so if he's saying it's the nation that touches the Israelites, what do you do with Israelites who enslave Israelites? By that logic, how would they escape the same punishment? You understand? In fact, any wrongdoing. Because it doesn't work if that's what you're basing it upon. And then it gets really silly when, what about groups of people that these guys just don't know how to put into any category, like the Armenians, the Georgians. Study the Armenians and the Georgians and people in that region of the world, Azerbaijan, however you say, I always have trouble with the long country name, but it's the not so nice neighbor to Armenia. The Assyrians, the Syrians, they didn't enslave. You see, they didn't enslave. They weren't part of that. They definitely didn't really harm Native Americans and Latino folks. So it's just dumb. It's such an American religion, this thing. Such an American religion.
Like great
founding.
grandfathers.
What do they call themselves? The founding fathers.
Yeah, that was
So y'all got to pay for
Freemason.
And what were we when they said all men are created equal? Was that us? No.
No, you were 3/5 at the time.
We wasn't even.
Okay, so let's stop there, and we're going to go and look at Isaiah 60. Okay, let me bring it up here. We're looking at this interview with Captain Tazariak and Julian Dory, and it's got 60-some thousand views, and it came out in January. And now let's go to Logos Bible Study. Let's take a look here at Isaiah chapter 60. All right, what are we going to look at here? Here's what he's talking about. Isaiah, oops, somehow I ended up in 16. Let me go back. That's what he was citing, just in case you're wondering. It's highlighted there. For the nation and the kingdom which will not serve you will perish, and the nation will surely be laid waste. Mentioned specifically Lebanon there. Notice that. Okay, let's go up a little bit. Okay. Now, this would be good to read this all right now. Can't do it, but it's interesting some of the specific places that are named. See these specific places? None of these places have anything to do with America or Europe, by the way. I think it's important. You understand? Now, there we go. Okay. Now, this is an interesting verse, no doubt about that. Yahweh talking to Israel, the wealth of the nations coming into Zion. Whenever you see Zion, it's emphasizing the holy and set-apart nature of God's people as evidenced specifically by the city of Jerusalem. That's what Zion more technically means. And focusing on the presence of Yahweh in the temple. This is the way Zion tends to be used. It's sort of the religious nickname for Jerusalem. But it can mean other things related to that, but that's what it has to do with. That's important to understand. It's important to understand that it uses Zion. And the whole point is that God's people are going to be dwelling with him. That's the whole point. Now, I want to show you something a little bit before this, which is interesting. I'm just going to... we're going to start here. Arise, shine, your light has come. This is out of LSB. The Lord Yahweh is risen upon you. Behold, darkness will cover the earth, dense gloom from the peoples. Yahweh will rise upon you. His glory will appear upon you. By the way, this is ultimately fulfilled in Jesus Christ. You understand? Nations will come to your light. Now, who's the light of the world? Jesus. You understand? This is... A Christian should ultimately interpret this through the lens of the new covenant. That's it. If you don't do that, you're going to go astray. All right? Kings of the brightness of your rising. For example, like the wise men. Lift up your eyes round about and see. They all gather together. They come to you. Your sons will come from afar. Your daughters will be carried on the nurse's hip. So they're interpreting this in an over-literalistic way. This wouldn't apply to them if it was literal, because they're not Israelites. But a Christian's got to read the New Testament and see this ultimately being fulfilled in the Great Commission. This is ultimately service to Christ. Your sons will come from afar. Your daughters will be carried on the nurse's hip. Then you will see and be radiant. So now we are the children of the light. John describes us as. And your heart will tremble and be large with joy, because the abundance of the sea will be turned to you. A multitude of camels will cover you. The young camels of Midian and Ephah, all those from Sheba will come. They will bring gold and frankincense and will bear good news of the praise of Yahweh. Gold and frankincense. Where did I see that before? Oh, That's in the New Testament. That's 2 of the 3 gifts that the wise men brought Jesus. Do you think that this should lead you to think about Jesus Christ being the ultimate fulfillment of this and his people after that? When you see they will bring gold and frankincense and bear good news, which you could say gospel of the praises. Do you think this should make you think of Jesus Christ, his gospel, the incarnation? It should, if you're a New Testament reader. All the flocks of Kedar will be gathered together to you. The rams of Nebaioth will minister to you. They will go up with acceptance on my altar. And I shall adorn my glorious house with beautiful glory. House. But who's the one who tabernacled among men? Jesus. He's the one who is the exact imprint of his nature. The radiant glory. Hebrews 1, Colossians 1, Colossians 2. Important. Who are these who fly like a cloud and like the doves of their lattices? Surely the coastlands will hope in me. The ships of Tarshish will come first. Interesting, Paul. To bring your sons from afar, their silver and their gold with them. For the name of Yahweh your God, and for the Holy One of Israel, because he has adorned you with beautiful glory. See, they're just thinking of themselves as if they actually fulfill this. It's ridiculous. The ultimate fulfill this is the true Israel. It's Jesus Christ. It's not descendants physically of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, whoever they may be. It's about Christ and his church. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Foreigners will build up your walls and their kings will minister to you. The way they look at this is some forced labor where you literally have Africans building walls for them. Question, is there anything telling you that this is done by force? These goofy guys interpret this as if it has to be done by force. But does it say that? It does not say that, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe this is willing cooperation. Maybe this is showing how the new heaven and the new earth is a joint venture. Yes, it is. Their kings will minister to you, for in my wrath I struck you, and in my favor I have had compassion on you. Your gates will be open continually. Why would the gates of the city of Zion be open continually? It's showing there's no barring of anyone, including people of all types of nationalities. They're able to come into the city. There's no threat. They will not be closed day or night, so that men may bring to you the wealth of the nations. This also shows you this is not something that happens literally on planet Earth under the current conditions. Don't you see? So that men may bring to you the wealth of the nations with their kings led in procession. For the nation, the kingdom which will not serve you will perish. The nations will surely be laid waste. That's his verse right there. So there's more there. But I want to stop there. You can look at this just because I want to look at Isaiah 60:12. Now, what I want to do is I've already explained to you in essence the way to get at this. It's through the New Testament. It's through the lens of Christ. But I want to take a look at a couple commentaries. I've already talked a little bit about the context and showed you some things, but let's take a look at maybe almost 8-9 commentaries briefly and see what they say. Now, we are not getting all of our interpretation from a commentary. We are already reading the passage. We could go more into depth. We went some into depth. I brought out some key things there, specifically the frankincense and myrrh. But now we go to the expositor's Bible commentary, and let's see what it says. Now, I'm not saying all these are going to agree. I've read these in advance, so I know what they say. Some will agree, some will say a little bit, but we're going to learn about people who have studied this, what they would have to say. And all these you can look up the authors, but I'm just going to give the name of the commentary in these, okay? Okay. Throughout much of her history, Jerusalem had been subject to assault from foreign enemies. It was foreigners, the Babylonians, who destroyed her walls, and other foreigners, the Romans, would do so again. Like other Near Eastern cities, Jerusalem's gates would have been shut every night as a protection against sudden attack. All this reflected the judgment of her God that was so often on her. Now she would be the object of his grace. Jerusalem will see both the service and wealth of their nations and their monarchs, and no opposition to her will be tolerated by her God. Any fulfillment of this after the exile was only partial. So here's the partial fulfillment of some of this in a more literal sense. The Persians made possible the rebuilding of the walls, but did not do it themselves. So if you want to look for a more literal interpretation of verse 10, you could say the Persians in a more literal way, but ultimately that's not what the verse is about. And notice he understands the Bible has a spiritual interpretation, if we're going to call it that, but he misses it when it comes to verses like this. It's true fulfillment lay beyond the Old Testament era altogether. So that's expositors. Now let's go to the Tyndale Old Testament commentary. Again, we're looking at Isaiah chapter 60, verse 12. Why are we looking at this? This is a specific verse that Cesariak brought up as proof that people are going to be enslaved to ISUPK under commanding General Yohana, because you understand that's ultimately what he's getting at. That's ultimately what these goofy guys believe. And I'm not saying they're not smart, but they certainly are goofy. It's such a goofy religion. I'm sorry. I don't mean that to be disrespectful, but it just is what it is. I mean, my goodness. Now, I'm trying to help you guys see a little bit why here. So let's look at the Tyndale and see what it says. By the way, it's not written by Tyndale. It's a commentary series with his name. Sometimes people will get that confused. Nation Goy. Literally, nations goyim. The word typically means the world outside the people of God, but it is not their alien status which contends them, but their refusal of Zion supremacy. That's the key line here. That's the key line here when it talks about this. The point is not their ethnicity or their background. The point has to do with resistance of the will of God. That's where the problem would come in, okay? And so they miss that because they incorrectly racialize all this stuff. The Lord's light is there, but they will not be drawn. His name is there, but they will not come to learn. His compassion is there, but they are careless of the threat of his wrath. Their self-chosen fate is to perish in ruination. So that's a way to look at it. Now let's look at the Wycliffe. Again, this is not written by Wycliffe. It's a Bible commentary with his name. I just want to explain that so people understand. When you say the Wycliffe, I'm not talking about by John Wycliffe. So this is a certain perspective. Let's take a look at it. Isaiah 60:10. Here the scriptures give us a picture of the glory and peace of millennial Zion. So this is a dispensationalist perspective, and I'm reading it to give you a dispensationalist view. As Gentile believers join hands with Jewish believers to establish the new theocracy and its glorious capital, Jerusalem. Now, why do I read that? I'm trying to show you different perspectives from commentators who look at this kind of thing. What's the point of that one? The idea there is it's a millennial kingdom, okay? So that's a dispensationalist view, and it's important to have that opinion in the mix since dispensationalism does exist. But there, notice it's still not slavery. They're joining together. You see that? So that's a dispensationalist view. The earthliness of this setting seems to preclude assigning it to heaven. The empire of Messiah will be supreme and brook no opposition or rebellion. Apparently, a beautiful temple is to be built in Zion. So I disagree with this. I don't think there's going to be a third temple. I think that's a problem. The people are the temple, to which even the converted descendants of Israel's persecutors will come as worshipers. But even under this dispensationalist view, because sometimes you'll get Israelites who try to act like the dispensationalist view lines up with their view or something like that. Even on this view, there's converted descendants of Israel's persecutors who will also be there as worshipers, not as slaves. That's Wycliffe. Now, I'm going to save my favorite one for last, but this is a very interesting one. This is from the Africa. Notice, this is from the Africa Study Bible. A lot of people don't know this exists. It's a very interesting resource, the Africa Study Bible. Let's see what the Africa Study Bible has to say. And you can buy this Bible, and it gives interesting perspectives, and I think it has a lot of interesting stuff. Here's the Isaiah 60:12 section, application. Let's see what the Africa Study Bible, by the way, the authors are of African descent, is my understanding. I don't think there's any exception to that. Isaiah 60, where is this great nation? God's deliverance is not just for our personal enjoyment or individual happiness, literally what the Hebrew Israelites believe. It serves a much greater purpose. He brought Israel back from the exile to be transformed into an imperfect yet beautiful symbol of his goodness and power on earth. The nations would look to Israel seeking the God who made them great and beautiful. There the nations would find God among his people. This is the promise of God dwelling with his people. He's a transformed God who turns evil to good and weakness to strength. God promised Israel this transformation, but the reign of prosperity never came. Even though Israel returned from the exile by the permission of the Persians, Israel sought to bring this transformation forcefully through the Hasmonean rebellion against Greece and had a short-lived dynasty. However, by the way, that's when the Edomites got largely extinguished, not 100%, but a lot of them. However, Israel was quickly conquered and continued to live in foreign oppression under the rule of Rome. So where was the glorious transformation God promised in Isaiah 60? Ultimately, we must look to Jesus Christ. Christians, that's the exact right answer. Hebrew Israelites aren't Christians. They don't give that answer. They do not understand how to interpret the Bible because they act as if the new covenant is not in effect And they act as if Jesus never came. That's the way they act. Now, what's it say here? Through his death and resurrection, he began to gather God's people from every corner of the earth, Jews and Gentiles. Although the glorious vision of Isaiah dwells in the heart of every individual believer, there will become a promised day when Jesus returns to judge the living and the dead. This is when the great nation proclaimed in Isaiah 60 will be established. Isaiah 60:20 sounds remarkably like Revelation 21, 3 through 4, 23. And they're exactly right. Look what it says. Look what it says here. Look what it says, Revelation 21:3. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, Behold, the tabernacle of God is among men, and he will dwell among them, and they shall be his people, and God himself will be among them, and he will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and there will no longer be any death, there will no longer be any mourning or crying or pain. The first things passed away. Ooh, that's good. Verse 23 says, And the city has no need of the sun or of the moon to shine on it, for the glory of God has illumined it, and its lamp is the Lamb. Hebrews never even make the connection between Isaiah 60:20 and Revelation 21, but they should, and the African Study Bible gets it. Both passages reference God being present among his people. Although we see part of Isaiah's vision fulfilled, we wait with patience but eager expectation for Christ's return, for the complete fulfillment of a great and beautiful nation within whom God will be found. We must be ready and keep watch, for we will not know the time and place of Christ's return. It's exactly right. Now we go to I forgot, what's the BST? Oh yeah, Message of the Bible. This is Barry Webb's commentary on Isaiah. So this is very brief, this little commentary. I'm going to look at Isaiah 60:12. Now, a Hebrew Israelite who doesn't appreciate looking at other perspectives and who just heard what Johanna said and swallows it hook, line, and sinker doesn't appreciate this. And if they do a show on it, what they'll say is, vocab just goes to white commentaries. First of all, I went to the Africa Study Bible, and most of them will say that without knowing the actual identity of these folks. The question is, what they're saying is true. And notice how their interpretation doesn't line up with any of the perspectives, because I'm even showing different perspectives. This is part of the way you come to a stronger position, is by interacting with people who have thought about it, give their reasons, and you learn and grow from interacting with them. Now, let's see here what it says. Now, let us note some of the more particular aspects of this vision. The first thing it affirms is that the kingdom of God will conquer all other kingdoms. And that's the point. That's the point. Nations and kings will come to Zion not to conquer, but to acknowledge that the God who has chosen to reveal himself there is the only God, and to submit to him. They act like it's submitting to General Johanna. Those who refuse to do so will perish. And that's the point. Every knee will bow. Every tongue confess Jesus Christ is Lord, not Johanna. It is a great irony of history that the Rome which crucified Jesus, the 1st century AD, capitulated to him in the 4th, when the Emperor Constantine declared himself a Christian. It may have been a mixed blessing, as the next between goes on there. So that's important. Now I'm going to read a couple more commentaries, but first I want to play a little more of this.
Wasn't even 3/5 yet. Yeah. We wasn't 3/5 yet. Because that's the independent. That's the in the independence in the Constitution. It was all men are created equal. I think that
we're going to go to 126 here.
He had this whole Reconstruction plan, and then when he's killed, Andrew Johnson, who probably wouldn't have even wanted to change slavery, comes in and says, no, fuck that. They had literally even apparently given some land out for a few days to some former slaves, and then took it back from them, and now did not give them the reparations, which, and this is where there's a fair argument, set up a cycle generationally of people who now had to go find had to basically kill their own food, when there's other people in society who get to live off the continued passing down generational wealth of land.
Right.
I think there's a point to be had there for sure.
No, and so that's what I'm saying. So because none of that has happened, when we talk about white people paying for the judgment, the reason why we say God, remember I said that for me is spiritual when I follow the Bible. So if the Bible said that I had to forgive y'all for everything, as much as I would hate it, if I believe in God, I would have to do that.
It doesn't say you got to do that?
No.
What about the whole, turn the other cheek shit?
Isn't this an amazing conversation? Now, we're going to return to that. I skipped forward, but I'm still going to read a couple more commentaries on Isaiah chapter 60, verse 12. Julian Dory, the non-believer, gets it better than Tazariak. All right. So, going to go over here now to the Geneva Bible Notes. Now, this one's what the Puritans used, the Geneva Study Bible. That's what they came over with. So it's written in a really weird Old English. He showeth, yet God hath give all power and authority here in earth for the use of his church, and that they which will not serve him profit, ye same shall be destroyed. Sounds a little post-millennial, but they've got the basic right idea, where they understand that for the most part, references to old carnal physical Israel should be interpreted to understand in light of what Christ has done with his church. Now, I understand not all my audiences are going to agree with that, but I did want to show you the Geneva Study Bible. You can see the rest of these on the screen. Notice how often it's saying church, and you maybe say, well, that's strange. The Puritans understood, as the Geneva Study Bible indicated, that the new covenant is a reality and things must be Christocentric, and that's what you're seeing there. Now, this is another commentary. This is the Apologetics Study Bible. Oh, wait, no, I didn't have anything in that one. I'm sorry. My bad. Let me go to Fawcett's here. I think I had something from him. Yeah. I want to show you this real quick, what Fawcett says here. Isaiah chapter 60, verse 12. And I hope you appreciate this. I find it interesting to do. And we're trying to take Bible study seriously. Let's see. King shall minister unto thee. So we're starting in verse 10. For in my wrath, okay, there's the text. Notice all the references. The gates are ever open to receive new offerings and converts. Again, they're not going to agree with that. So in the case of the spiritual Israel now, in time of peace, the gates of a city are open. So just like the Puritans understood it as a reference to the church, Fawcett understands it as spiritual Israel, which is the church. Now, I understand not everyone in my audience is going to agree with that, but that's my perspective, so that's the perspective I'm going to give. I didn't agree with the dispensationalist one, but at least it wasn't a Hebrew Israelite one. So this is interesting to show. Now, what's the point by this is, this is not some new thing that Christian scholars invented to kind of like, because they'll act like this, to do away with the Hebrew Israelite understanding. You know, that's what these guys will act like sometimes. Like, oh, you know, this is what the Edomites will say to not have to deal with the truth. This is something that's been around for a minute as far as an understanding of verses like this. So here we are, Isaiah chapter 60, verse 12. In time of peace, the gates of a city are open, so under the Prince of Peace there shall be no need of barring gates against invaders. And then it goes on, talks about Gentiles as willing captives to the truth, or if not willingly, I like that phrase, willing captives to the truth, be brought by judgment to submit to Israel. Gesenius explains it, may be brought escorted by a retinue, for the nation that will not serve thee shall perish. The reason which will lead Gentile kings and people to submit themselves, fear of the God of Israel. Okay, now I'm going to go to the Bible commentary, Isaiah 60:12. This is by Charles Ellicott. These are all in Logos, by the way, and no, Logos ain't giving me nothing extra to do, anything to look at these or anything like that. Constant stream of caravans of pilgrims with their offerings enter by night as well as day. It is interesting to note St. John's transfer of the thought to the heavenly Jerusalem. So again, this is something Hebrew Israelites should be doing, is comparing this to Revelation. So let's see the verses he lists, Revelation 21 and 25. Notice it's exactly the same type of language. This one is even closer than the previous parallel Revelation, I think. Its gates will never be closed by day, for there will be no night there. They will bring the glory and the honor of the nations into it. Now, how does that happen? That happens because the church is a multinational conglomerate, a multinational organization. Now, here's the last commentary I'm going to look at. It's Matthew Henry's. Again, in the Puritan tradition, as it were. A little wordy, but I find this very helpful. I wish I could look at all this. Man, I'm so tempted to read so much of this. Okay. So this is Matthew Henry's commentary on Isaiah 60. We're going to look starting here in verse 11. And this is the last commentary I'm reading, okay? Then we're going to continue with the interview there. I got some interesting stuff Tazarek's going to say. Ready? Those that come to the church shall be welcome. So this is a commentary specifically on Isaiah 60:11. For so spacious is the holy city that though, Lord, it is done as thou hast commanded, yet still there is room. Therefore thy gates shall be open continually, not only because thou hast no reason to fear thy enemies, but because thou hast reason to expect thy friends. It is usual with us to leave our doors open, or to leave some one ready to open them all night if we look for a child or a guest to come in late. Note, Christ is always ready to entertain those that come to him, is never out of the way, nor can they ever come unseasonably. The gate of mercy is always open night and day, or shall soon be open to those that knock. Now, I understand this one's a little more devotional. That's no doubt about that, and a little more interpretive, but I think the application is right and ready, and way more so than the Hebrew Israelites rendering of the one Westers. Ministers, the doorkeepers must always ready to admit those that offer themselves to the Lord. God not only keeps a good house in his church, but he keeps open house, that at any time, by the preaching of the word, in season, out of season, the forces of the Gentiles, and the kings or commanders of those forces may be brought into the church. Lift up your heads, O you gates, and let such welcome guests as these come in. All that are about the church shall be made in some way or other serviceable to it. Though dominion is far from being founded in men's grace, it is founded in God's. And he that made the inferior creatures useful to men will make the nations of men useful to the church. The earth helped the woman. All things are for your sake. So here, verse 10, even the sons of strangers that have neither knowledge of thee nor kindness for thee, that have always been aliens to the commonwealth of Israel, even they shall build up thy wall, and their kings shall in that and other things ministers unto thee. The English is kind of old here, I understand. And not think it any disparagement to them to do so. This was fulfilled when the king of Persia and the governors of the provinces by his order were aiding and assisting Nehemiah in building the wall about Jerusalem. Whether the Jerusalem's wall shall still lie in ruins, the sons of the strangers shall be raised up to build them. Even those that do not belong to the church may be a protection to it. And the greatest of men should not think it below them to minister to the church, but rejoice that they are in a capacity and have a heart to do it in any service. Nay, it is the duty of all to do what they can at their places to advance the interest of God's kingdom among men. It is at their peril if they do not. Here's the key. Shout out to Henry Roth for the super chat. Thank you very much. And thank you for your prayers, my friend. Thank you, Henry Roth. Shout out to you, brother. Not that they must perish by the sword or by human anathemas. By the way, that's literally what Tazariak was saying. Or as if this gave any countenance to the using of external force for the propagating of the gospel, so it's not by force, or as if men might be compelled by penalties and punishments to come to the church, by no means, but those who will not by faith submit to Jesus Christ, the King of the church, and serve him shall perish eternally. And that's really what it's about. Ultimately, it's saying you're going to be cast out of the heavenly city, you're going to go to hell, lake of fire. Those that will not be subject to Christ's golden scepter, to the government of his word and spirit, that will not be brought under or kept in by the discipline of his family, shall be broken in pieces by his iron rod. Amen, Matthew Henry. Bring them forth and slay them before me. Luke 19:27. Nations of such shall be utterly and eternally wasted when Christ shall come to take vengeance on those that obey not the gospel. Back to our video with Julian Dory and Captain Tazariak on slavery.
That's Christ talking to Israelites. What other Israelites have to do? Which
No,
is
he's talking to you. You're an Israelite.
Yeah, what I'm saying. So, and that's what we do. We go out to Israelites in black and brown neighborhoods, and we teach them to stop being violent against each other.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what that is. That's not talking about another nation doing something to us. Christ never talked to other nations.
He never talked to other nations.
Except that one white woman, he called her dog a female dog. You know what a female dog is,
a bitch.
Right? Yes. Oh, you can say that. Yeah. So he called the white woman a bitch.
Jesus called a white woman a bitch.
Yeah. He said it's not good. He said it's not good to take the children's bread and cast it to the dogs.
Oh, Jesus.
That's what he said.
Lady. He called a baddie a bitch.
Yeah. Jesus was a gangster. You know, he beat. You know, he beat. He wasn't ready for that one.
Well, hold on. we're gonna get back to that. By the way, what a misuse of the verse to say that Jesus called a quote white woman the B word, and I even make fun of that in the song that I did on UPK. But someone just told me this. This is exactly what I'm talking about. This is crazy. Look at this. Who just told me this? And by the way, how did you even keep track of all this? Sat 12. Tazariak is live now on Mark Lamont Hill. Take a quick look. So here we are doing a show, and I'm talking about how Tazariak is soaking up the limelight for the ISUPK. And while I'm talking about that, Tazariak is live with Mark Lamont Hill. Now, I'm not going to play the audio from it. And this is just... Here it is. Here it is. What do Israelites think about Israel-Palestine? Night School. Captain Tazariak discusses Hebrew-Israelite history, Palestine, and black liberation. My, how the mighty have fallen. Mark Lamont Hill, 188,000 subscribers, has on Captain Tazariak to ask him these opinions. Wow. Look at the side here. The live chat is very interesting. So this is live. While we are going, 511 people are watching a stream that's been going for an hour and a half with Captain Tazariak of the ISUPK on Mark Lamont Hill, literally right now. Do you wonder why I do what I do? Do you guys understand? Now, we're not going to watch this live and go into this, but I just... do you guys understand why we do this? Crazy. Thanks for the look there, Sat, by the way. Good look. Okay, back to the video.
Remember, in John the second, I think it's John the second chapter, he made a scourge of cords and beat them out the temple.
He did?
Yeah.
I'm unaware.
Yeah, listen, so when...
Are you aware of this, Leslie?
He did.
He beat him with a scourge
You're
of
talking
cords.
about when he came into like the Gentiles, right? And then he sees them.
Not the Gentile. He came into the temple and he saw the money changers exchanging money in the Lord's house. And remember, he made the scourge of cords and beat him out and said, "My father's house not supposed to be a den of thieves." Yeah, like a whip. He made whips.
Oh shit.
Yeah, beat the shit. And this the carpenter's son. You know, that wrist game was strong as hell.
Wrist game was good, bro. Well, let's see how you taking this. Is it affecting your worldview?
I think it's an interesting perspective. Like I said, I think the perspective he's taking, it comes down to context. Mm-hmm. And I think you can weave any story, like any religion facet, off of Christianity by taking verses and aligning them. I think that's
I agree with you on
many
that.
faiths do that are like off of Christianity. However, when you take the Bible for what it is and you take it all, and not just taking a Hebrews text to an Isaiah to then a John and Mark, but read it all as one.
Right.
You know, I don't think he's saying, "Oh, I only spoke to one nation." He's talking to all people.
But did he whip a motherfucker?
Mm-mm.
I have to look at that closely.
Yeah, that's John the second chapter.
Okay.
That's John the
2.
second
chapter. Let's go. Jesus going ham. John
So
the second.
A few things here. Number one is I guess Julian Dory has a person who would describe himself as a Christian in the studio with him, and I don't know how he didn't know about the account of Jesus cleaning out the temple. Now, actually, what he said before that was good stuff about how these religions take bits and pieces, but the overall picture doesn't look like whatever they're proffing up at us. Now, that's true. Now, let's talk briefly about the cleansing of the temple. It's so unbelievable how Jesus does something, and these fools try to make it as if it's evidence for Jesus being a racist bigot who's going to whip people. The money changers there, who do you think they were? Huh? What type of people do you think they were? You think there's a bunch of Gentiles in there selling stuff? Is that what we think? Some Gentiles up in there? You understand what I'm getting at? Jesus is kicking over the tables of money changers who were Israelites like himself. This is not evidence of some racial animus. This is Jesus' zeal for the house of the Lord. And a lot of what they were doing was actually keeping out Gentiles. Now, that gets into other stuff, but it's ultimately dealt with in Ephesians 2. This is what you need to look at. But I'm just going to show you something that is so shocking that this is here and that Hebrew Israelites would use this, that it's so shocking, but it's so simple. It's so simple. And I can't wait for you guys to see this when we go into the scripture and we go into Mark chapter 11, where Tazariak is talking about. Now, he mentioned John chapter 2. Certainly it takes place in John chapter 2. But the Mark 11 passage is especially interesting. Can I show you something here, ladies and gentlemen? So, we're going to go back, and we're going to watch some more clips. But right now, I want to show you this, and then we'll deal with the Syro-Phoenician woman in Matthew 15. Jesus drives merchants from the temple, okay? Then they came to Jerusalem, and he entered the temple, began to drive out those who were buying and selling in the temple, and overturned the tables of the money changers and the seats of those who were selling doves. He was not permitting anyone to carry merchandise through the temple. Now notice, first of all, none of these passages say anything about Jesus literally whipping people. That's an interpretation they put in there. It just doesn't say that. Does it say that? No, it doesn't say that. Never trust a Hebrew Israelite when they tell you what the Bible says. And when I say never, I literally mean never. Now, look at Jesus' reasoning for this action. Some of you already saw this coming, and I'm so grateful for you that saw this coming. He began to teach and say to them, so this is after he just did the actions. So now he's going to give his rationale. Is it not written, my house should be called a house of prayer for all the nations? Tazariak, I don't care if you're on Mark Lamont Hill, and more people are definitely checking that out, no doubt about that. You're a total amateur in the scripture, my friend. In the passage you went to, now I understand you John 2, but this is the parallel passage, Jesus cleaning out the temple. He tells you his rationale. My house, notice, my house. Jesus is acting like he has a right to clean out this house. Understand that? That's strike one against your doctrine. Now, I understand he's quoting the Old Testament passage there, but what he's saying is, this is my house. I have the power and the authority and the right and the prerogative and the responsibility to keep it clean, to keep it clear, because it's my house, because I'm God. Strike one against your doctrine. You don't think Jesus is God. Strike two, my house should be called a house of prayer for all nations. In the passage, it literally speaks about this being for the globe. Now, you're going to try to twist the text here, but that's what you do because you're under the commanding General Yohana. So there's the first strike against their wicked doctrine. Now, let's go to Matthew chapter 15. This is where he says, oh, Jesus called a white woman the B word. That's what he says. All right? That's what he says, right? Now, it starts over here in verse 21. And you have this situation, Tyre and Sidon, right? And Jesus is basically completing his Galilean ministry. Now he's withdrawing to the Gentile regions. And that's not accidental. And while he's there, there's a Canaanite woman. It doesn't say a white woman. And remember, according to the Zondervan Compact Bible Dictionary that Tazariak loves so much, Canaanites are descendants of Ham. What's my point here? Understand, you got to keep track of this stuff. This is the only way to be a good apologist. You got to follow the argument. He said Jesus called a white woman a bee in the Julian Dory clip we just watched. However, when you go to his dictionary, under Ham, it says the progenitor of the dark races and lists the Canaanites. This woman is described as a Canaanite, yet he calls her a white woman. He can't get his story straight because Hebrew Israelism is filled with holes. Do you understand the problem here? I hope that you're paying attention. This is the way you become a good apologist, trusting God and paying attention. Going away there, Jesus withdrew into the district of Tyre and Sidon. Behold, a Canaanite. It doesn't say a white woman. Why would you think she's white? Because you're a racist bigot and you just wanted to have Jesus calling someone white, the B word? But it's not in there. You know, this is in the Obama movie called Barry that my first book title comes from. And I remember some goofy guy was like, oh, vocab, you're slandering. This Barry movie says that, call a white woman a bee. I've never heard an Israelite say that. I don't know where you've been, my friend. It was an older guy, too. I'm like, yo, you're just out the loop. Because they literally do that. Tazariak is on Julian Dory literally saying that. Canaanite woman, descendant of Ham, if it's literally saying that. Now, it doesn't mean we don't know what she looked like, but don't say white. From that region, says she's from that region. Came out and began to cry out, saying, have mercy on me, Lord, son of David. My daughter is cruelly demon-possessed. Now, this is interesting. Lord can be a title of great respect. I don't think she fully realizes what she's saying here. She uses son of David, shows she has some knowledge about Jewish thought about Jesus. You can see that in verse 27. Maybe this woman knows or knew Ishman. That's a pagan god of healing, and he had a temple 3 miles northeast of Sidon. But she doesn't go there. She goes to Jesus instead. This is faith. Now, Canaanite, basically in these kind of contexts, usually just means simply a non-Jewish pagan person living in that region. It only occurs here in the New Testament. This is the only use of Canaanite. Now, certainly doesn't mean white. It just shows you can't trust ISUPK in the commanding General Yohana and Tazariak, who's underneath his boot. He, Jesus, did not answer her a word. Disciples came and were pleading with him, saying, send her away. She keeps shouting at us. She was loud. She was serious. So notice, Jesus is starting off by not responding to her, but he's not sending her away. The disciples are saying, please, Jesus, send this woman away. She keeps on shouting. He answered her and said, so after they demand action, he does answer, I was not sent except to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Interesting. Now, in this same book, Matthew, at the end, it says, go to all nations. The message of the gospel is decidedly for all nations, and you can see that when it's supposed to go out to the Gentiles in Acts 1:8, Acts 22:21, Acts 26:17 and 18, Acts 26:23, Luke 24:47, John 10:16. But at this point in the gospel narrative, as you see the unfolding of God's purpose, the focus is on the Jewish people first and their spiritual need, and that's exactly what Jesus is saying. Now, what happens next? Verse 26. Here's what Tazariak was talking about. He answered and said, it is not good to take the children's bread and throw it to dogs. Now, that's because she came and was bowing down before him, saying, Lord, help me. Notice the faith of this woman. She's bowing before Jesus. Hebrew Israelites want to be bowed to. They want to be treated like Jesus. Lord, help me. If this woman was really a white woman, and instead of Jesus, it was Captain Tazariak, he would say, while you're down there, lick my boot, kiss my shoe. That's what he would have said under his wicked religion. Jesus doesn't do that. Watch what Jesus does. You got to hang in there, though. He answered and said, it is not good to take the children's bread and throw it to dogs. Ooh, Jesus. Now, Jews frequently would insult Gentiles by calling them dogs. That's why it's dumb that he makes the point that she's a female, because Gentiles would be called dogs by Jews in general as far as a derogatory insult. Now, in ancient Israel, dogs were basically wild, homeless scavengers. But Jesus used a certain Greek form here, kainarion, which means little dog. That suggests a more affectionate term, as in domestic pets. He's not insulting the woman. He's testing her faith. Now, if the account ended there, you might say, why you say that, vocab? Watch what he does. And by the way, don't think it above Jesus. Don't think it above God to test your faith. That's happened a few times in the Bible, right? Abraham. She said, yes, Lord. Wow, you got to like this lady. Even the dogs feed on the crumbs which fall from their master's table. Notice the humility. She presses Jesus. She alludes to the extended blessings promised to the Gentiles through Abraham. Genesis 12:3. Even if she didn't know that reference, God knows the reference. But it seems she does know about it. Because why else would she say this? Now, Jesus answered and said to her, "O woman, your faith is great." Notice it doesn't have anything to do with her ethnicity. Why does he bless her? The same reason he blesses anybody. Their trust in Jesus. They're missing the whole point of the story. They try to get out of it a curse word from Jesus. Blasphemous. Bigots. It shall be done for you as you wish. Jesus is literally doing what she wants. This is a prayer request answered. Her daughter was healed at once. Beautiful, powerful, amazing. You can't beat this. Now, God's plan first is to bring salvation to Israel, then to the Gentiles. Look at verse 24. No doubt about that. But he responds to all who call on him in true faith. And this Gentile woman's attitude is so humble that it allowed, if you want to use that word, Jesus' healing ministry to operate there for her. And what's he implying by this? She is more than meets the eye. What do I mean by that? I was not sent except to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. It's implying she's part of the house of Israel because he helps her. Jesus is saying you are part of the lost sheep of the house of Israel because he helps her. He's not going to contradict his mission ultimately. Her faith has made her part of God's people despite her ethnicity. So your boy Tzariak is all out of sorts when he tells this to Julian Dory. Now let's flip over here and see what else he's going to tell
Second
him.
chapter. Let's see what we got.
It said Jesus going
Yeah.
in. Let me make
Yeah.
sure I got the right verse. Hold up. Let me see.
right.
Let me get it here.
Now I'm going to skip a
Unless
little
he-
bit
unless he's
forward
trying
to
on
2
Yeah,
hours
John.
and 19 in. Okay, we're going 2 hours and 19 in, right about. Shout out to Nina Monico. Thank you for opening up the word, she says. Hey,
About slave
Thank you, appreciate
from
that.
America. Whenever you say
let me see. Let's put that on the. Thank you for. Appreciate that. Okay, so continuing on here. Continuing things here. And I want to show you what they are as Tzariak talks to Julian Dory.
On Instagram, Leslie, go to Captain T's Instagram.
you might have to scroll down.
Oh, yeah. So now notice the motion he just made. I know I had the sound off. Julian Dory's talking about when he saw Tzariak and his guys practicing with the whip, getting ready to whip Africans' backs and whatnot. So I want to show you this video that Tzariak is so proud of. It's so ridiculous. This religion is not just wicked, it's so stupid. I'm not saying they're stupid, but they believe in a stupid religion. Listen and watch carefully about this and just ask yourself, is this really a godly religion? Is this a godly man? Is this something that God's people would want to emulate and be part of and that should be promoted? So they're
I
going
know,
to his
you're like-
Instagram.
you're firing
Now
up
look
my
at the
feed,
video
bro.
they're going to show.
Some
No,
of it,
keep going.
some of it's low key. Like I'm like, that's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah,
But
keep
you
going.
got to keep going.
Yeah,
It's-
keep going.
it's
No,
a lot.
keep going. I post a
Keep
lot.
going. Keep going.
Keep going.
Keep
getting
going.
close. Wait. No, go back up.
All right, here it
That
Yeah,
goes.
one.
and top
Right next to
middle,
my
top
picture.
middle, top middle.
Watch this.
The other right above that.
Yeah,
That one.
yeah. Click that one. So this is some of the, you just cracking that whip. I won't put the sound on so YouTube can't blame me for this, but there's no people being harmed.
Nope.
There's just some good
And
old
listen,
whip.
he was doing
Is he
double
wearing
whipping.
some cowboy like
Those are fringes on the pants, so we wear fringes on the side of the pants.
the Cowboys?
Yeah, I guess you could say
How
cowboy.
very white of you.
That's not white. The original Cowboys.
Hold up. I know it's a little blurry here, but I'm going to read you what the Instagram caption says. The crack of the whip is coming to white folk. Now, to Tzariak, you're saying to white folk, but you believe it's coming to black folk too. Why don't you tell us the full truth about what you believe, Tzariak? Why you just say to white folk? You think it's going to come to Africans, but you're not going to whip the Africans under your enslavement? You think you're going to be whipping black slaves in the kingdom? Don't you?
White of you.
That's not white. The original Cowboys was black.
Oh man, here
Yeah.
we go.
Y'all wasn't out there doing nothing with no cows.
But this
man.
is like a serious whip.
Yeah. When you do it with the sound,
All right, do it with the
he
sound.
does a
Fuck it.
double smack.
Yeah, do it with the sound.
Right,
Turn the
put
sound
Put
on.
the sound on. Watch this.
Here we go.
Watch this. Watch this. God Damn! You hear that shit?
My ancestors are feeling
I
that.
feel you white people. Hey, this nigga about to crack a whip, y'all. Watch this shit. God,
I should say my descendants are feeling that. That's
Yeah,
He
that's
says
serious
GD
whip. So that's what
in
you.
response.
This is the thing, Captain.
you know, the Bible says reward her double as she rewarded you.
I don't know if you
That's
guys
a
caught it, but
reward.
when his guy in the UPK is doing the whip, Tazarac's response is to say GD. GD. That's how he responds there. Okay, so that's 2:20 in. Now let's go over to 2:47. 2 hours and 47 minutes long. This is an extended interview. They talk about all kinds of stuff in this interview. So we're going 2:47. Check this out.
But I wish we had in society. I wish everyone was here, but like that's not how life works. I wish those pendulums were more here. So maybe you weren't saying, "Oh, let's go enslave white people or whatever," or "Let's go do this, this, or that." Instead, it's like, "Well, let's fix some of the things that have never been righted in society from, say, 1865,
Right.
when slavery ended." Could you not see how you might have been pushed a little stronger by the internet itself to believe these things?
In a way, yeah, like the way you lined it up, seeing the video, seeing the suggestion, seeing and how I got. So without the internet, I might not have seen that.
Yeah.
But my organization was founded before the internet. So it was always there. With the internet.
Now, that's pretty interesting because what you have is him saying these extremes you went to or sort of a reaction to other stuff. And the internet is how you came about it. So it's an interesting little clip because he shares that is the way he came upon it, is through the internet. Now he says ISBK was around before that though.
Suggested my Facebook account based on my phone number. And so they playing my video.
He's telling a story where at his work, they watched his videos and found out what he teaches when he's not at work. Listen to this.
For the president of the company. And so I just start packing up my laptop. Listen, I just start packing up my laptop and cleaning out my desk and stuff like that because I'm like, there's no way they're going to keep me at this corporate job talking like that. And so, and he was Jewish. The president of the company is Jewish.
Ooh, double
and
whammy.
so, Jewish guy brings me into his office. So we sitting down there talking and he's like, you know, I saw the video and I saw, you know, everything that you were saying.
It wasn't the whip video, was it?
No, it wasn't the whip video. I can't even remember the video, but he was like, but you know, you don't do none of that here. I said, I never would because I'm just teaching. I said, at this job, I'm not trying to convince nobody here to believe what I hear. I'm just doing my job. And I kept my...
So this man says he's in a halfway house, slavery. Yet he's talking about a corporate job he has where he's got a desk and a laptop. And then he's teaching, and at his job, they discover his teaching videos. This is the story he's telling. And his Jewish boss brings him in and talks to him about it. Listen to the end of the story. This is going to trip you out. Watch.
job. I didn't lose the job or anything. And then I left the company on my own volition and then came back to the company. So when I'm around white people, it's not...
Not only did he get to keep his job, he left for a spell and then comes back and gets rehired. Oh, it's a Zaryak. I mean, I'm glad. I'm not even tripping on that. That's cool. That's fine. But it just, your story you tell goes against the made-up narrative that you paint. Now, the last section they get into has to do with white Jesus, black Jesus. We've went longer than I thought, so I don't think I'm going to be able to go there. Thank you for the super chats today. We got 8 super chats. What that means is I need to cover another ISUPK video because if you look at the goal we had 5 super chats as our goal. We reached them now tonight because of you guys, and I am very appreciative and very grateful for you guys for that. Who knows? Maybe the Mark Lamont Hill will be something we need to do because I can't believe he had him on. But we did achieve our goal tonight. Thank you very much. Working on some new videos for you, including shorts. If you haven't seen the debate with myself and Shadi, definitely watch that. A lot of the stuff I've been putting out relates to that. And you guys were very supportive, very helpful. And shout out to everybody. There's more to talk about. Can't do it now, but because he specifically brought up the idea that, the white woman was called a B word. I'm going to play it tonight. Party in the UPK, the parody music video I did from Miley Cyrus' song in conjunction with Brother Jay and my homeboy Jonathan Sheffield, the animator. We're going to watch it and notice how that line is in there. Let's watch this and see what's going down. Be sure to come back next show where we look into the overlooked.
Come on, everybody.
It's a party today in the UPK.
Up on the block on 125th with the Bible in my hand. Welcome to New Babylon, or is it Egyptian? Regenerate, I'm here for the third time. Look at your white wife, Negro, you're out of line. Theology is so crazy. No job and no so lazy. King James, not a Scott, and the internet proves it. Twist the scripts, call your mama, UPK on the radio. It's the
Just going to stop right there real quick. I want to go back just so you can see the reason why I'm playing this today. What did I say? I said it's in here.
and the internet proves it. Twist the scripts, call
What verse was on the Bible page that he was ripping? Do you guys, that was being ripped? Matthew 15:26. And it says, twist the script, call your mom up. So I specifically cited in the song. I wrote the lyrics to this. I didn't sing it, and I didn't do the animation, but I wrote the song. So I just wanted to point that out real quick. And let's go.
internet proves it. Twist the scripts, call your mama. UPK on the radio. It's the Hebrews' favorite show. Talking all night long, cursing all night long. So pull your pants up, 2 guns of gasoline. I'm gonna fly to the moon. I'm grabbing your girls like yeah, lashing the waist like yeah. So pull your pants up, 2 guns of gasoline. I'm gonna fly to the moon. Yeah, it's a party in the UPK. Yeah, it's a party in the UPK. I arrived to the camp with the fringes on. Everybody's looking at me now. They're like, who's the ark with the kiss? Getting kissed with the Limelight on the ground. Regenerate, I'm here for the 4th time. My mom is white, so she could die tonight.
Slavery is coming to America. That's right. And you, black man, you gonna own slaves. That's right. You Hispanic man and Native Indian man, you are going to own slaves. That's right. You are gonna make them pick your cotton. That's right. You are gonna make them shine your shoes. That's right. You're gonna make them mop your floor. Right. And you are gonna work them like dogs. That's right. What is it to God's people, man?
So pull your pants up, 2 guns of